Do you have experience looking at someone and thinking you knew their worth, only to be completely wrong? Imagine a woman forced to scrub champagne flutes in the back of a gala, bullied by a socialite who treats people like furniture. Everyone laughed, everyone pointed, but they didn't know the man they were all there to impress, the billionaire CEO walking through the front door, has been searching for that dishwasher for 5 agonizing years. And when he finds her, the noise of shattering glass won't just be the dishes, it'll be their entire world falling apart. Grab a drink. You're not going to believe how this ends. The air inside the Obsidian Heights estate smelled of expensive lilies, old money, and the distinct metallic tang of fear. It was the engagement party of the decade, or so the invitations claimed. Heavy cream cardstock with gold leaf lettering that probably cost more than Clara Bennett's rent for the last 3 months. Clara adjusted the collar of her stiff black catering uniform. It was a size too small, cutting into her neck, but she didn't complain. She couldn't afford to complain. At 26, Clara had learned that pride was a luxury item, and right now her bank account was overdrawn. "Trays up, people. Look alive," hissed Brown, the catering manager for elite events. He was a sweaty man who wore a headset like it was a crown. "Mr. Russo is expected in 30 minutes. If I see a single smudge on a glass, you're fired. If you breathe too loud, you're fired." Clara picked up a silver tray loaded with foie gras canapés. Her hands were steady, despite the exhaustion dragging at her eyelids. She had worked a double shift at the diner before coming here. She kept her head down, her dark hair pulled back into a severe, invisible bun. The goal was to be furniture. To be a ghost in the machine of the wealthy. She moved through the ballroom, weaving between men in bespoke tuxedos and women wearing diamonds heavy enough to anchor a ship. The room was a sea of noise, polite laughter, the clinking of crystal, the soft hum of a string quartet playing in the corner. "Excuse me," a sharp voice cut through the ambient noise. Clara froze. She knew that tone. It was the tone of someone who had never heard the word no in their entire life. She turned slowly to see Vanessa Cole. Vanessa was stunning in a predatory way. She wore a strapless scarlet gown that looked like it had been poured over her body, and on her finger sat a diamond the size of a quail egg. She was the hostess, the bride-to-be, pending the official announcement, and the daughter of a senator. She was also currently glaring at Clara's shoes. "What?" Vanessa asked, pointing a manicured finger. "Are those?" The music seemed to dip. A small circle of silence formed around them. "My shoes, Mom," Clara whispered, gripping the silver tray tighter. "They are the standard issue regulation." "They are scuffed," Vanessa interrupted, her voice carrying effortlessly. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Her eyes were cold, like blue glass. "I paid Elite Events a fortune to ensure perfection. Perfection implies that the help doesn't look like they just walked out of a gutter." Clara felt the heat rise up her neck. "I apologize, Miss Cole. I polished them before." "Don't speak," Vanessa snapped. She took a step closer, invading Clara's personal space. She snatched a glass of red wine from a passing waiter, a vintage Cabernet, thick and dark. With a flick of her wrist, almost casually, Vanessa tilted the glass. The wine splashed onto the white marble floor, right between Clara's feet, splattering the hem of her black trousers and her scuffed shoes. The room went silent. "Oops," Vanessa said, deadpan. "Clumsy of me. But look at that stain. It's unsightly. Someone needs to clean it up. Immediately." Brown, the manager, materialized out of thin air, looking terrified. "Miss Cole, I am so sorry. I'll get a mop right away." "No," Vanessa said, holding up a hand. Her gaze never left Clara's face. "She can do it, but not with a mop. That won't get into the grout." Vanessa reached into her clutch, pulled out a silk handkerchief, and dropped it into the puddle of wine. It soaked up the red liquid like blood. "Get on your knees," Vanessa commanded softly, "and wipe it up." The humiliation was a physical blow to the gut. Clara looked around. People were watching. Some looked away, embarrassed. Others, the younger socialites, were smirking, phones raised, recording the drama. "Miss Cole," Clara said, her voice trembling but clear, "I am a server. I'm not—" "You are whatever I pay you to be," Vanessa hissed, leaning in so only Clara could hear. "Do it, or I call your agency and ensure you never work in this state again. Brown tells me you're desperate for the hours. Sick mother in the hospital, is it? Clara's heart stopped. How did she know? It didn't matter. The threat was real. Her mother's dialysis treatments weren't free. Slowly, agonizingly, Clara bent her knees. She lowered herself onto the cold, hard marble. She picked up the sodden handkerchief. The smell of expensive wine filled her nose, sickeningly sweet. She began to wipe. "Good girl," Vanessa said loudly, for the benefit of her audience. "Maybe after this, you shouldn't be serving food. You clearly have a talent for cleaning. Brown, put her in the scullery. She can wash the dishes for the rest of the night. I don't want to see her face out here again." "Yes, Miss Cole. Immediately," Brown squeaked. Clara finished wiping the spot, her hands stained red. She stood up, not looking at anyone. She felt the tears pricking her eyes, hot and stinging, but she refused to let them fall. She would not give Vanessa that satisfaction. She turned and walked toward the kitchen swing doors, her head high, leaving the glittering ballroom behind. But as the doors swung shut, she didn't see the commotion at the main entrance. She didn't see the hush that fell over the room for a completely different reason. The king had arrived. Daniel Russo hated parties. He hated the fake smiles, the transactional handshakes, and the way everyone looked at him like he was a walking ATM. At 32, Daniel was the youngest CEO in the history of Russo & Co., a tech conglomerate that had recently swallowed 3 of its competitors whole. He stepped out of the black armored SUV, adjusting the cuffs of his Tom Ford tuxedo. He was a tall man, broad-shouldered, with sharp, angular features and dark eyes that usually looked bored or dangerous. Tonight, they looked both. "Smile, Dom," his mother Evelyn whispered as she took his arm. She was an elegant woman in her 60s, wearing pearls and a worried expression. "Vanessa has gone to a lot of trouble. This merger with her father's firm depends on tonight going smoothly." "The merger depends on the numbers, Mother," Daniel rumbled, his voice a deep baritone, "not on how many shrimp cocktails I eat." "Just try to be present," Evelyn pleaded. "It's been 5 years, Daniel. You have to move on." Daniel stiffened. He didn't say anything, he just walked her up the grand staircase of the Obsidian Heights Manor. 5 years. 5 years since the fire in Paris. 5 years since the woman he loved. The woman who had saved him when he was nothing but a broke, rebellious runaway trying to prove his father wrong, had vanished. He remembered her laugh. He remembered the way she smelled like vanilla and rain. He remembered the promise ring he had given her, a cheap silver thing he'd bought from a street vendor, which she cherished more than diamonds. And then she was gone. No note, no trace. Just an empty apartment and a cold side of the bed. His private investigators had found nothing. It was as if she had never existed. Daniel shook the memory off as they entered the ballroom. The atmosphere shifted instantly. The air became electric. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. "Daniel!" Vanessa Cole came gliding toward him, the red dress flowing around her like water. She had composed herself since the incident with the maid. Now she was the picture of the doting fiancé-to-be. "You made it," she cooed, reaching for his cheek. Daniel expertly turned his head so her kiss landed on the air near his ear. "Vanessa, quite the turnout." "Only the best for you," she beamed, linking her arm through his. "Senator Dad is dying to talk to you about the regulatory hurdles in Sector 4. But first, champagne." She snapped her fingers. A waiter rushed over with a tray. Daniel took a glass, his eyes scanning the room. He didn't know what he was looking for. He never did. It was just a habit now. Every room he entered, he scanned for dark hair, for a specific curve of the neck, for a ghost. "Is something wrong?" Vanessa asked, noticing his distraction. "The service seems tense," Daniel noted, observing the terrified look on the waiter's face. Vanessa laughed, a tinkling, fragile sound. "Oh, just a little hiccup earlier. Had to discipline a clumsy server. You know how hard it is to find good help these days. They just don't have the work ethic." "Is that so?" Daniel took a sip of the champagne. It tasted bitter. "She spilled wine right on the floor. Nearly ruined my shoes." Vanessa sighed dramatically. "I sent her to the back to wash dishes. It's where she belongs, really. Some people just aren't built for the front of the house." Daniel felt a flicker of annoyance. He detested bullying. He knew what it was like to be at the bottom. cut off from his family fortune during his rebellion years, washing dishes himself in a hostel in Italy to pay for a train ticket. "You sent a server to the scullery for an accident?" Daniel asked, his brow furrowing. "For incompetence, darling. Don't worry your handsome head about it." Vanessa pulled him toward the center of the room. "Come, let's dance. The cameras are watching." They danced. Daniel moved mechanically. He went through the motions, shaking hands with senators, nodding at investors, listening to empty compliments. But his mind was itching. He needed air. "I need a moment," he muttered to Evelyn around 9 p.m. "Where are you going?" "Kitchen," Daniel said. "I need water. Real water, not this sparkling nonsense." "Daniel, have a waiter get it." But he was already walking away. He needed to escape the perfume and the ego. The kitchen was usually the only honest place in a venue like this. It was where the real work happened. He pushed through the swing doors, the noise of the party cutting off instantly, replaced by the clatter of pots and the shouting of chefs. "Corner!" "Hot behind!" The kitchen was a chaotic ballet. Steam rose from giant stockpots. Chefs were plating intricate desserts with tweezers. Daniel walked toward the back, looking for a water cooler. The staff froze as they saw him, the tuxedo-clad billionaire in their workspace, but he waved them off. "As you were, just getting water." He found a sink near the back, away from the main line. It was the scullery, the area where the dirty dishes came to die. Piles of plates with half-eaten filet mignon were stacked high. The steam from the industrial dishwasher was thick and hot. And there, standing on a rubber mat, soaked to the bone in sweat and steam, was a woman. Her back was to him. She was scrubbing a roasting pan with a steel wool pad, her movements rhythmic, aggressive. She was wearing a uniform that was too small, and her hair was falling out of its bun. Daniel paused. He had seen 1,000 dishwashers. But then the woman hummed. It was barely audible over the hiss of the steam sprayer, a low melodic tune. A lullaby. Lavender's blue, dilly dilly, lavender's green. Daniel's heart slammed against his ribs. The glass of water he had just poured slipped from his fingers. It shattered on the floor. Crash. The woman at the sink jumped. She turned around, eyes wide with fear, expecting to be yelled at by Brown or Vanessa. She whipped around, holding the soapy roasting pan like a shield. Her face was flushed from the heat. A few strands of wet hair were plastered to her forehead. She looked tired, thinner than he remembered, and her eyes were rimmed with exhaustion. But those eyes, those hazel eyes with the flecks of gold. Daniel forgot how to breathe. The kitchen noise faded into a dull roar. The steam seemed to part around them. "Clara," he whispered. The name felt foreign and familiar on his tongue, like a prayer he hadn't said in years. Clara Bennett dropped the roasting pan. It clattered into the sink with a deafening bang. She stared at him, her mouth opening slightly. She looked at his tuxedo, his face, his eyes. She took a step back, hitting the edge of the sink, trapping herself. "No," she whispered, her voice cracking. "No, no, no." "Clara," Daniel said again, louder this time. He took a step forward, ignoring the dirty water on the floor, soaking his patent leather shoes. "It's you." "You shouldn't be here," Clara stammered, looking for an exit. "Sir, please, I have to work. I can't. I need this job. Please don't fire me." She didn't recognize him, or she was pretending not to. "Fire you?" Daniel stopped, confused. "Clara, look at me. It's Dom. It's Nico." Nico. The nickname she had given him in Florence, the name nobody else used. Clara flinched as if he had slapped her. The facade crumbled. The scared employee mask fell away, revealing the raw, terrified woman underneath. "Nico," she breathed, tears instantly filling her eyes. "Oh God." "You're alive," Daniel said, his voice trembling, with a rage and relief that threatened to buckle his knees. "You're alive, and you're washing dishes at my engagement party." "I didn't know," she cried, wiping her soapy hands on her apron. "I didn't know it was you. I swear. If I knew, I never would have come." "Why?" Daniel demanded, closing the distance. "Why did you leave? Why are you here? Who did this to you?" Before she could answer, the swing doors burst open. "There you are!" Vanessa's voice shrilled through the steam. "Daniel, what on earth are you doing in the—" She stopped. She saw Daniel standing inches away from the dishwasher girl. She saw the intensity in his posture. She saw the tears on the servant's face. Vanessa looked from the billionaire to the dishwasher, and her eyes narrowed. She didn't understand the history, but she understood a threat when she saw one. "Well," Vanessa laughed nervously, stepping into the damp room. "I see you've met our little charity case. Daniel, darling, come away from there. She smells like garbage." Daniel turned slowly to face Vanessa. The look on his face was no longer bored. It was no longer cold. It was murderous. The kitchen was hot, but the temperature around Daniel Russo had dropped to absolute zero. "Charity case," Daniel repeated, the words rolling off his tongue like gravel. He didn't look at Vanessa. He was still staring at Clara, taking in every detail of her misery, the cracked skin on her hands, the sweat on her neck, the way she shrank back against the industrial sink as if expecting a blow. Vanessa, oblivious to the guillotine blade hanging over her neck, stepped closer, wrinkling her nose. "Yes, darling, the one I told you about, the clumsy one. Honestly, Brown should have just thrown her out, but I felt generous." She reached out to touch Daniel's arm. "Come on, the senator is waiting for the toast." Daniel sidestepped her touch. He turned fully toward Vanessa, his height looming over her. "You made her wash dishes." "Well, she ruined the floor," Vanessa scoffed, her smile faltering slightly. "It was a punishment. A lesson. Why are you acting so strange? Do you know her or something?" Daniel looked at Clara. "Do I know her?" He let out a short, dark laugh that terrified the pastry chef 3 stations away. "Clara, tell her if I know you." Clara shook her head frantically, her eyes pleading. "Nico, don't. Please. Not here. I need the money. Just go." "You need money?" Daniel's voice broke. He reached into his tuxedo jacket, pulled out a sleek black wallet, and threw it onto the wet stainless steel counter. "Take it. Take all of it. You want money? I have billions, Clara. I would have given you the world, and you chose to vanish." The kitchen staff had stopped working entirely. Brown, the manager, was peeking through the service window, his face pale. "Daniel!" Vanessa shrieked, her socialite composure cracking. "What is going on? Who is this dirt?" "This dirt," Daniel snarled, "is the only reason I am alive." He turned back to Clara, ignoring the gasps. "Remember Florence, 2018? The hostel on Via Faenza?" Clara looked down, tears dripping into the sink. "Nico, stop." "I had nothing," Daniel continued, his voice rising, projecting through the kitchen. "My father cut me off. I was starving. I was sick with pneumonia. Who paid for the doctor, Clara? Who worked double shifts at that tourist trap cafe to buy me antibiotics?" "I did," she whispered. "Who sat up with me for 3 nights keeping the fever down? Who gave me the seed money for the first code I wrote? That 5,000 euros you found?" "You didn't find it, did you?" Clara sobbed. "I sold my grandmother's earrings." Daniel froze. He hadn't known that. The revelation hit him like a physical punch. "You sold the heirlooms you told me you lost." "You needed the server space," she said, her voice gaining a tiny bit of strength. "You said the code was going to change the world. I believed you." "It did change the world," Daniel shouted, slamming his hand on the counter. "And when I woke up to tell you we made it, you were gone." Vanessa looked between them, her face twisting into a mask of ugly realization. This wasn't just a fling. This was the one. The mythical ex Daniel never spoke about, and she was standing here in rubber shoes, covered in dishwater. Vanessa's instinct was not empathy. It was elimination. "Oh, isn't this touching?" Vanessa sneered, her voice icy. "A little sob story from the help. Daniel, she played you. She probably left because she found a bigger mark. And now she's here, crashing my engagement party to try and claw her way back in." Vanessa turned to Brown, who had entered the kitchen. "Brown, security! Get this woman out of here. She is harassing the guests." "No one touches her," Daniel said. It wasn't a shout, it was a command. "This is my party," Vanessa screamed, stomping her foot. "My father is paying for this." "And I'm buying the venue," Daniel said, calm, deadly. "As of right now, I'll buy this whole damn catering company if I have to." He looked at Brown. "If you want to keep your job, you will bring her a chair, a clean one, now." Brown scrambled, grabbing a stool and shoving it toward Clara. "Sit," Daniel told her gently. Clara sat, trembling. She looked small and broken. "Why, Clara?" Daniel asked again, crouching down so he was eye level with her, ignoring the muck on the floor. "Just tell me why you left." Clara looked at Vanessa, then at Daniel. She took a shuddering breath. "Because your father paid me to." The silence in the kitchen was absolute. Even the dishwasher cycle seemed to pause. Daniel stared at her. "My father. He came to the apartment while you were at the pitch meeting," Clara said, her voice hollow. "He had photos of my family, my mom. She was sick back then too. He knew about the debts. He knew everything." She wiped her nose with the back of her hand. "He told me that if I stayed with you, he would ensure no investor in Europe ever looked at your code. He said he would crush you before you even started. He said you needed to come home, to be the Russo heir, and I was a distraction." Daniel closed his eyes. It made sense. It made perfect, terrible sense. His father, the ruthlessly pragmatic patriarch, manipulating the chessboard. "He offered me a choice," Clara continued. "Leave, and he would pay for my mom's first surgery and ensure your company got the funding it needed from his shadow partners. Stay, and he would ruin us both." She looked up at him, her eyes fierce. "I didn't leave because I didn't love you, Nico. I left because I loved you too much to watch you fail." Daniel felt a sensation he hadn't felt in years. Tears. One hot tear escaped, tracking through the stubble on his cheek. "And the money?" he asked. "The payoff?" "It went to the hospital," she said. "Every cent. Then the cancer came back, then the debts came back. And I couldn't call you. I signed an NDA. If I contacted you, he would sue me for the medical bills. I would have gone to jail." Daniel stood up slowly. He felt like he was made of fire. "Vanessa," Daniel said, not looking at her, "where is my father?" He's in the VIP lounge with the senator," Vanessa stammered. She looked terrified. The narrative she had built, the perfect couple, the power merger, was dissolving. She tried one last Hail Mary. "Daniel, wait, this is a lie. She's a grifter. You can't believe this dishwasher over your own family. Look at her, she's disgusting." Vanessa reached out and grabbed Clara's shoulder, digging her nails in. "Get up, you verify." Daniel moved faster than thought. He caught Vanessa's wrist. He didn't squeeze hard, but the grip was iron. "Do not," he whispered, "touch her." He released Vanessa, who stumbled back, clutching her wrist. Daniel took off his tuxedo jacket. He wrapped it around Clara's shoulders. It was huge on her, swallowing her small frame, smelling of expensive cologne and safety. "Come with me," he said, offering his hand. "I can't go out there, Nico," Clara panicked. "I look like this." "You look," Daniel said, his voice breaking, "like the only real thing in this entire building." He pulled her up. "We are going to have a talk with my father." The ballroom was still oblivious. The string quartet was playing Vivaldi. Waiters were circulating. Then the double doors from the kitchen swung open. Daniel Russo walked out. He was in his shirt sleeves, his tie undone. Holding his hand was a woman in a stained, oversized catering uniform, draped in a tuxedo jacket worth more than a car. The room went silent. Ripples of confusion spread outward. "Is that the dishwasher?" someone whispered. "Is he holding her hand?" Vanessa followed them out, face red, hair disheveled. "Daniel, stop this. You are embarrassing me." Daniel ignored her. He marched straight through the crowd, parting the sea of elites like Moses. He headed for the raised VIP dais where two older men sat, Senator Cole and Lorenzo Russo. Lorenzo Russo was a lion of a man, silver-haired and imposing. He was laughing at something the senator said, holding a cigar. He looked up as the crowd quieted. He saw his son. Then he saw the woman. The color drained from Lorenzo's face. The cigar fell from his fingers, bouncing on the table. "Daniel," Lorenzo said, standing up. "What is the meaning of this?" Daniel stopped at the base of the dais. He didn't let go of Clara's hand. "Hello, Father," Daniel said. His voice was amplified by the acoustics of the room. Everyone could hear. "I found her." Lorenzo's eyes darted to Clara, then back to Daniel. "I don't know who this person is. This is a party, Daniel. Go put your jacket on." "Don't lie to me," Daniel roared. The sound echoed off the high ceilings. The senator looked around, confused and alarmed. "You paid her off," Daniel accused, pointing at his father. "Florence, 2018. You blackmailed her to leave me so I would come back to the company. I did what was necessary for the family, Lorenzo snapped, dropping the pretense. You were throwing your life away on a startup and a waitress. I saved you. You didn't save me, Daniel said, his voice dropping to a chilling calm. You broke me, and you left her to rot. Daniel turned to the crowd, to the press, to the cameras that were now all pointed at them. Everyone, listen up. Daniel, don't you dare, Vanessa hissed, grabbing his arm. My engagement to Vanessa Cole is off, Daniel announced. Gasps filled the room, flashbulbs erupted like lightning. And, Daniel continued, looking straight at his father, I am resigning as CEO of Russo & Co., effective immediately. You can't do that, Lorenzo shouted, panic finally setting in. The stock will tank. The merger. I don't care, Daniel said. I built my division from scratch. I own the IP. I own the patents. And I'm taking them with me. He looked down at Clara. She was looking at him with awe and fear. You said you sold your grandmother's earrings to fund me, Daniel said softly to her. Yes, she whispered. I still have the first dollar we made, Daniel said, and I have the ring. He reached into his pocket, not the ring box he was supposed to give Vanessa, a different one, a worn velvet pouch he kept on his keychain. He pulled out a simple tarnished silver band, the promise ring. I never took it off my keychain, he said. Daniel, Clara cried softly, you're giving up everything. I'm giving up nothing, he smiled. It was the first real smile he had worn in 5 years. I'm getting back everything. He didn't propose. It wasn't the time. He just placed the ring in her hand. Let's go, he said. But Vanessa wasn't done. You think you can just walk out? She screamed. She grabbed a glass of champagne from a nearby table. She's a thief. I saw her stealing silverware earlier. That's why I sent her to the back. It was a desperate lie, a pathetic one. Search her, Vanessa yelled at the security guards. She has silver in her pockets. The guards hesitated. Daniel stepped in front of Clara. She has nothing in her pockets, Daniel said. Prove it, Vanessa shrieked. Turn out your pockets, you little rat. Clara looked at Daniel. He nodded. Show them. Clara reached into the oversized pockets of the catering trousers. She pulled out the contents. Her hands came out empty, save for one thing, a crumpled, wet piece of paper. What is that? Vanessa demanded. A list of things to steal. Clara unfolded it. Her hands shook. She held it up. It was a photograph, a Polaroid, old and faded. It was Daniel and Clara 5 years ago in Florence. They were sitting on a stone wall, eating gelato, laughing. They looked poor, messy, and infinitely happy. It's the only thing I kept, Clara said, her voice ringing clear in the silent hall. I didn't steal your silver, Miss Cole. I don't want your silver. I just wanted to remember when I was happy. She dropped the photo. It fluttered to the floor, landing face up. The crowd looked at the photo. They looked at the billionaire and the dishwasher. And for once, the cynicism of the elite cracked. They saw the truth. Vanessa stood there, mouth open, looking utterly defeated. The lie had dissolved in the face of that simple, crumpled square of paper. We're leaving, Daniel said. He wrapped his arm around Clara, shielding her from the flashes, and they walked toward the exit. But as they reached the door, a voice called out, Wait. It was a woman's voice, strong, commanding. It wasn't Vanessa, it wasn't Evelyn, it was the CEO of Archer Global, the rival firm that had been trying to headhunt Daniel for years. A woman named Catherine Archer. She stepped out of the crowd, blocking their path. Daniel stopped, his body tensing. He shielded Clara, expecting another attack. Catherine Archer was a shark in a navy pantsuit. She was 50, sharp-featured, and known for eating smaller companies for breakfast. She looked at Daniel, then at Clara. Mr. Russo, Catherine said, her voice smooth, if you are truly resigning from your father's company, that means your non-compete clause is negotiable. I'm done with corporate games, Catherine, Daniel spat. Move. I'm not here for you, Catherine said surprisingly. She turned her gaze to Clara. I'm here for her. Clara blinked, wiping a smudge of grease from her cheek. Me? Clara Bennett, Catherine said, from the Bennett & Sons logistics family in Ohio. Clara froze. My father went bankrupt 10 years ago. The company is gone. The company is gone, Catherine agreed, but I remember the optimization algorithms your father used. They were brilliant. Revolutionary. He said his teenage daughter wrote them. Clara looked down. I just liked math. I helped him with the routing tables. You wrote the Bennett Protocol, Catherine corrected. I tried to buy the code back then, but your father was too proud to sell. Then he went under and the code was lost. Catherine took a step closer. Daniel Russo is a genius at hardware. But his software, the back-end systems that made his startup fly in Florence, that looked familiar to me. She looked at Daniel. She wrote your back-end, didn't she? Daniel nodded slowly. She optimized the data flow. It made us 10 times faster than the competition. Catherine smiled, a genuine predatory smile. So let me get this straight. I have the hardware genius, she pointed to Daniel, and the logistics prodigy, she pointed to Clara, standing right here, both currently unemployed. Catherine reached into her purse and pulled out a card. I don't care about your shoes, Ms. Bennett. I care about your brain. Archer Global is launching a new logistics division next month. I need a CTO and a COO. I'll beat whatever salary you were making washing dishes by about 5 million%. Vanessa, who had followed them to the door, hoping to see them thrown out, let out a strangled gasp. She's a dishwasher. You can't be serious. Catherine glanced at Vanessa with withered scorn. And you, my dear, are a relic. The world belongs to people who can build things, not people who just buy them. She turned back to Clara. Do we have a deal? Clara looked at Daniel. He was grinning. What do you think, partner? Daniel asked. Clara looked back at the ballroom, at the spilled wine, the judgmental faces, the man who had blackmailed her, and the woman who had humiliated her. Then she looked at the business card. I have conditions, Clara said, her voice suddenly steady. Name them, Catherine said. I want a signing bonus, Clara said. Enough to pay off my mother's medical bills in full. Tonight. Done, Catherine said without blinking. And, Clara added, looking over Catherine's shoulder at Brown, the catering manager who had cowered in the corner, I want you to hire elite events for your launch party. Brown's eyes widened in hope. But, Clara continued, only if Brown is working the scullery. I want him washing dishes. Catherine threw her head back and laughed. I like you. Deal. The heavy oak doors of the Obsidian Heights Manor slammed shut behind them, muting the chaos of the ballroom, but the chaos outside was just beginning. The paparazzi, tipped off by a leaking tweet from inside the party, had already swarmed the driveway. As Daniel and Clara stepped out into the cool night air, a wall of flashing lights blinded them. Mr. Russo, is it true you resigned? Who is the woman? Did you really leave Vanessa Cole at the altar? Daniel didn't speak. He simply took off his tuxedo jacket, the one he had draped over Clara's shoulders earlier, and pulled it tighter around her, shielding her face from the vultures. He moved with the terrifying efficiency of a man who had nothing left to lose. Get in, he growled, opening the passenger door of his matte black Aston Martin. Clara slid into the leather seat, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She was still wearing the stained catering trousers and the oversized damp shirt, but surrounded by the smell of Daniel's car, leather, cedar, and faint cologne, she felt safe for the first time in 5 years. Daniel slid into the driver's seat, hit the ignition, and the engine roared to life, a mechanical beast waking up. He didn't wait for the valet. He punched the gas, swerving around a confused photographer, and tore down the long, winding driveway, leaving the estate and his former life in the rearview mirror. For the first 10 minutes, silence reigned in the car. It was a heavy, suffocating silence, filled with the weight of unsaid things. Clara stared out the window as the city lights of the skyline blurred into streaks of gold and red. Her hands were shaking. She clasped them together, trying to stop the tremors. You really did it, she whispered finally, her voice cracking. You burned it all down. Daniel shifted gears, his hand gripping the stick shift so hard his knuckles were white. It was already burning, Clara. I just stopped pretending I couldn't feel the heat. He pulled the car over onto a scenic overlook, a quiet cliffside spot overlooking the glittering grid of the city. He killed the engine. The silence returned, but this time it wasn't heavy. It was intimate. He turned to her in the dark cab, the dashboard lights casting a soft blue glow on his sharp features. He reached out, his fingers hovering over her cheek, afraid to touch her, afraid she was a hallucination. "Let me see your hands," he said softly. Clara hesitated, then held them out. They were red, chapped, and raw from hours of scrubbing with harsh industrial chemicals. Her nails were broken. Daniel took her hands in his. He brought them to his lips and kissed the rough skin of her knuckles, then her palms. "I am going to spend the rest of my life apologizing for this," he murmured against her skin. "For not finding you sooner, for not burning the world down 5 years ago." "You didn't know," Clara said, tears spilling over. "Nico, you didn't know." "I should have known," he said fiercely, looking into her eyes. "I should have known you wouldn't leave me for money. I should have torn apart every hospital in the state until I found you." "We're here now," Clara said, leaning her forehead against his. "We're here now." And in the quiet of the car, with the city watching from below, they kissed. It wasn't the polite peck of a socialite engagement. It was desperate, hungry, and filled with the grief of 5 lost years. It tasted of salt and second chances. By the next morning, the world had changed. Clara woke up in the guest suite of Daniel's penthouse. For a moment she panicked, looking for her alarm clock, thinking she was late for her shift at the diner. Then she felt the Egyptian cotton sheets. She saw the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park. She walked into the living room wearing one of Daniel's silk robes. He was already up, sitting at the kitchen island with a tablet, a cup of coffee, and a look of grim satisfaction. "Don't look at your phone," he said without looking up. "Why?" Clara asked, pouring herself coffee. "Because you're trending. Dishwasher Cinderella is the #1 topic on Twitter. Russo is over is #2. He turned the tablet around. A video had leaked. Someone in the kitchen, probably a sous chef, had recorded the entire confrontation. The video showed Vanessa sneering, showed her forcing Clara to the floor, and showed Daniel's explosive entry. The internet, usually a divided cesspool, was united in one thing. They hated Vanessa Cole. User Oz Eat the Rich. Did she really make her scrub the floor in a silk dress? That's not a party, that's a medieval torture chamber. User HR TechBro99. Daniel Russo just walked away from $1 billion merger for his ex. That is the wildest power move I have ever seen. It gets better, Daniel said, swiping the screen. Look at the stock market. Russo & Company was in freefall. The stock had plummeted 18% since the opening bell. Investors weren't just reacting to the scandal, they were reacting to the loss of Daniel. Everyone knew he was the brain behind the tech. Without him, the company was just a shell of old money and bad management. "Your father called," Daniel said, his voice hardening. 12 times. And I blocked his number. He's panicked. The board is calling for an emergency vote of no confidence. Lorenzo is going to lose his chair. Clara felt a strange sensation in her chest. It wasn't pity, it was the feeling of a weight finally being lifted. "What about Vanessa?" Clara asked. Daniel smirked. "Vanessa is currently trying to sue the catering company for emotional distress. But her father, the senator, just issued a statement distancing himself from her behavior. She's radioactive, Clara. No one will touch her." Just then, the elevator chimed. Catherine Archer stepped out. She looked fresh, sharp, and ready for war. She was carrying a thick stack of documents. "Good morning, lovebirds," Catherine said, dropping the stack on the marble counter. "Coffee, black. Then we work." The next 3 weeks were a blur of caffeine, code, and corporate warfare. They set up shop in Catherine's black site, a secure underground office in Brooklyn used for sensitive projects. It was just the 3 of them, plus a small team of hand-picked engineers. Clara wasn't washing dishes anymore, she was the architect. She sat in front of 3 monitors, her fingers flying across the mechanical keyboard. She was rewriting the Bennett protocol from scratch, optimizing it for Catherine's global supply chain. Daniel sat opposite her, working on the hardware integration. They worked in a rhythm that felt like dancing. Silent communication, shared glances, the hum of productivity. "You know," Catherine said one afternoon, looking over Clara's shoulder at the cascading lines of code, "this algorithm is terrifying. It predicts supply chain disruptions before they happen. It factors in weather, political instability, even traffic patterns. It's just math, Clara shrugged, taking a bite of a bagel. It's not math, Daniel corrected, looking at her with unabashed pride. It's clairvoyance. But while they were building the future, the past was crumbling. Russo and Cohen was bleeding out. Without Daniel's patch updates, their legacy systems were crashing. Their clients were furious. Lorenzo Russo tried to hire replacement engineers, but the code was too complex. It was Daniel's architecture, built on Clara's logic. No one else understood it. On a rainy Tuesday, the news broke. Russo and Coedis was filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection to restructure its debts. They were liquidating assets. They're selling the server farms, Daniel said, reading the report, and the patent portfolio. Clara stopped typing. She spun her chair around. The patents. That includes your work, our work. Yes, Daniel said. It's going to auction on Friday. Catherine Archer leaned back in her chair, steepling her fingers. If a competitor buys those patents, we have a problem. They could sue us for copyright infringement on the new system. Then we don't let a competitor buy them, Clara said, her eyes narrowing. We don't have the liquidity to outbid Google or Amazon, Catherine warned. Even with my backing, it's too risky. Clara stood up. She walked to the whiteboard where they had mapped out the new company structure. She picked up a red marker. We don't need to outbid them, Clara said. We just need to make the assets worthless to anyone but us. How? Daniel asked, intrigued. The source code, Clara said. The original Bennett protocol that my father sold to Lorenzo's shell company 10 years ago. It had a kill switch, a time bomb clause. If the license wasn't renewed by the original creator every decade, the encryption key scrambles. Daniel's eyes widened. When does the decade expire? Clara checked her watch. In 48 hours, the day of the auction. So if anyone buys those servers, Daniel realized, a slow smile spreading across his face, they're buying $1 billion of bricked hard drives. Unless, Clara said, capping the marker, they have the creator to unlock it. Me. The auction was held at Sotheby's. It was a somber affair. The vultures of the tech world were circling the carcass of the Russo empire. Lorenzo Russo sat in the front row, looking aged and defeated. His silver hair was thinning, his suit looked a size too big. Beside him sat Vanessa, wearing dark sunglasses indoors, trying to look invisible. When the doors opened and the trio walked in, Catherine Archer in white, Daniel in black, and Clara in a stunning crimson power suit, the room went quiet. They took their seats in the back. Item 404, the auctioneer announced. The intellectual property and server infrastructure of the Russo Logistics division. Bidding starts at $50 million. 55, shouted a representative from a Chinese tech giant. 60, called out an Amazon proxy. The price climbed. 70, 80, 100 million. Lorenzo looked hopeful. If the price went high enough, he could salvage his personal fortune. 120 million, said the Amazon proxy. Going once? Excuse me, a voice cut through the room. Clara stood up. She walked down the center aisle. She didn't look at the auctioneer, she looked at the bidders. Before you bid, Clara announced, her voice steady, you should know that the core architecture of this system relies on the Bennett protocol, version 1.0. Who is she? The Amazon rep whispered to his lawyer. I am the architect, Clara said, and as of 8 a.m. this morning, the 10-year encryption license expired. Without the renewable key, which resides solely in my memory, that data is inaccessible. It is garbage. A murmur of panic rippled through the room. Lawyers were frantically checking their phones. She's lying, Lorenzo shouted, standing up. She's just a dishwasher, a disgruntled employee. Am I? Clara pulled a tablet from her bag. She projected a live feed onto the auction screen. It showed the Russo and Carmen server status. Every single indicator was flashing red. System lockdown, encryption error. The system is dead, Clara said. You aren't bidding on software, you're bidding on scrap metal. The Amazon rep put his paddle down. The Chinese rep shook his head and closed his laptop. One by one, the bidders withdrew. The auctioneer looked around, sweating. Do I have any bids? Silence. Lorenzo Russo slumped into his chair, head in his hands. He was ruined. The debts exceeded the physical value of the assets. He was looking at total insolvency. I have a bid, Daniel said, standing up from the back row. He walked down to stand beside Clara. He took her hand. How much? The auctioneer asked, his voice trembling. $1, Daniel said. That's insulting, Vanessa screamed from the front row. This is worth billions. It was worth billions, Daniel corrected. When I ran it, when she built it. Now, it's a fire hazard. $1, take it or leave it. Or I walk and you can pay the disposal fees. The auctioneer looked at the bankruptcy trustee. The trustee looked at the sea of red lights on the screen. He nodded. Sold, the auctioneer banged the gavel. To Mr. Daniel Russo for $1. Daniel turned to his father. Lorenzo looked up, his eyes watery and red. You won, Lorenzo whispered. Are you happy? You destroyed your own name. No, Daniel said, leaning down. I reclaimed it. The company isn't Russo & Co. anymore. He looked at Clara. It's Bennett Russo. He then turned to Vanessa. She had taken off her sunglasses, revealing eyes puffy from crying. She looked at Clara's crimson suit, at the way Daniel held her hand, at the power radiating off them. You really think you've won, Vanessa hissed. You're still just trash. Clara stepped forward. She didn't yell, she didn't slap her, she just smiled, a small, pitying smile. Vanessa, Clara said softly, I'd offer you a job, but we have a strict policy. What policy? Vanessa spat. Competent people only, Clara said. She turned on her heel and walked out, Daniel and Catherine flanking her like royal guards. 3 months later. The air on the rooftop of the new Bennett Russo headquarters was crisp and smelled of victory. The launch party was in full swing. It was the antithesis of the Obsidian Heights Gala. There were no stiff waiters, no classical quartets. A jazz band was playing, food trucks were parked on the roof. The dress code was come as you are. Clara stood by the railing, looking out at the skyline. She held a glass of champagne, her own brand this time. She watched the crowd. There was Catherine, laughing with a group of young coders. There was Daniel, charming the press, but his eyes constantly darting around, looking for her. And there, near the service entrance, was a man in a white apron. It was Brown, the former manager of Elite Events. After the scandal, Elite Events had gone under. Vanessa had sued them into oblivion to save her own skin. Brown had been unemployed for months until Clara hired him. He wasn't the manager. He was washing glasses. Clara walked over to the service station. Brown froze as he saw her approach. He looked terrified. Ms. Bennett, he stammered, wiping his hands on his apron. The glasses are clean. I promise. Clara looked at the stack of glasses. She looked at Brown, a man who had kicked her when she was down because he was afraid of a woman in a red dress. Relax, Brown, Clara said. I just wanted to say, Brown whispered, looking at his feet, I'm sorry for that night. I shouldn't have. No, you shouldn't have, Clara said firmly. But you needed a paycheck. I understand that better than anyone. She reached into her purse and pulled out a tip. $100 bill. She placed it on his tray. Work hard, she said. Be kind to your staff, and maybe one day you'll make manager again. She walked away, leaving him stunned. It wasn't revenge, it was mercy. And somehow that felt more powerful. She felt a hand on her waist. Daniel. You're too nice, he murmured in her ear. I would have fired him into the sun. That's why you're the CEO and I'm the mastermind, Clara teased, leaning back into him. Actually, Daniel said, turning her around, I've been thinking about a title change. Oh? I don't want to be your business partner anymore, he said. The noise of the party seemed to fade away. The jazz band slowed down. Daniel reached into his pocket. He didn't pull out the tarnished silver ring this time. He pulled out a box. Inside was a diamond. Not a gaudy quail egg like Vanessa's. It was a rare, uncut diamond, raw and beautiful and indestructible. Set in a band of black titanium and gold. I want to be your husband, Daniel said. He didn't kneel. He stood eye to eye with her, treating her as an equal. I want to wake up every day and know that the smartest person in the room is on my side. Clara, will you marry me? Clara looked at the ring. She looked at the man who had burned down an empire to find her in the ashes. Only on one condition, she said, her eyes shining. Anything. No engagement party, she laughed. I've had enough of those. Deal, Daniel grinned. He slid the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. They kissed, and the crowd erupted in cheers. Catherine raised her glass. The flashbulbs went off, but this time Clara didn't hide. She looked straight into the camera, her hand in Daniel's, the diamond catching the light. She wasn't the dishwasher. She wasn't the victim. She was the woman who had scrubbed the floor and found gold underneath. And that is the ultimate cleanup. Clara proved that dignity isn't about what you wear or what job you do. It's about who you are when the world tries to break you. If this ending gave you chills, do me a favor and hit that like button. It helps the channel more than you know. And I want to hear from you. Was Daniel's $1 bid the best revenge, or should he have let his father suffer more? Tell me your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications. I have a story coming up next week about a nanny who inherits a castle, and trust me, the family is not happy about it. See you then.